Welcome to today's ALA Solution Series webcast, How Legal Administrators Can Reduce Overhead and Improve Firm Profitability. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Actionstep. Actionstep is an adaptable legal practice software platform for modern law firms. Built in the cloud with workflow automation at its heart, Actionstep transforms law firm productivity at every step. We are so excited to be joined today by Beth Thompson, the Vice President of Market Growth at Actionstep. Welcome, Beth. We look forward to hearing from you, so go ahead and take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much. As Joy mentioned, I'm Beth Thompson, Vice President of Market Growth here at Actionstep. I'm joining you this afternoon from my hotel in Philadelphia. So in a couple of probably 30 seconds, I'm going to turn my camera off just to maintain bandwidth so that we have the best possible experience this afternoon. I'm excited to be joining you all. I have spent the last 30-something years in legal, both working for law firms and then also for several different legal technology companies and consulting companies over the years. I've been very fortunate to really be able to build my career around this wonderful legal community. And because of that, I do enjoy volunteering now so that I can give back to this community who's really given so much to me over the years. I am currently the co-chair of the events committee for ILTA, and I am now a committee member for the newly formed Future Readiness Advisory Council, which is kicking off at conference here in another week and a half. So I'm very excited about that. I often author articles and blogs and things, and of course present. And one of my passion projects wrapped up probably about a year ago. I co-hosted the first season of the Powerful Leaders No Apologies podcast with my dear friend Debbie Foster. That was a labor of love, and we got to meet a lot of very wonderful, powerful female leaders in the legal industry. So that was certainly a fun project as well. But we're going to go ahead and kick things off now. I'm going to turn my camera off, and then we're going to dive right into our session for the day. I say I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm actually maybe not going to turn my camera off because I'm not seeing it right now. So that's okay. Let's get started here. Okay, so we do all know that legal administrators are the backbone of firm operations, right? We know that today we're going to focus our webinar on talking about some of the areas that you manage and how we can find some opportunities to improve efficiencies that will hopefully convert to increased profits throughout your organization. And these are, critical areas such as billing, compliance, scheduling, of course, staff, management and liaisons, client communications, which are all very essential to the running of the firms. But there are a lot of manual tasks that are eating up much of your time, much of your staff's time, and much of your, lawyers and paralegals' time. And where can we identify those and come up with alternatives to help the law firm deliver on the best possible client experience and at the same time be efficient, but also a profitable business? And so we're going to really focus on that because every lost hour, no matter whose hour it is throughout the firm, it is going to impact the profitability for the business. So, in order to protect profitability and empower our teams, we do need to shift some of this work to automation where we can. We're going to talk about that, making sure that you've got the right people doing the right jobs with the right tools and also at the right time. These are all very important to the success of the firm. And there we go. So one of the things we're here to focus on the discussion around improvements and profitability, but client satisfaction is really at the core of both of these. At Actionstep, we focus on the business of law, and we have created this report that is now in its third year. I will mention and reference this mid-size law firm priorities report a few times as we have our discussion today. I will make this report available to you. If you would like a copy of it, we will provide my email address at the end of the presentation. I am more than happy to send it out to anyone that would like to read it. There's a lot of really great insights in here. We're only going to just scratch the surface today as it relates to some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So what is this report, and where did we get our information? We used a third party, and we had them talk to and survey 264 different law firm professionals. This includes what in this report, legal staff, which represents the lawyers and the paralegals, and then admin support, which is really firm administrators like many of you, practice leaders, IT leaders, operations, really any of your non-lawyer and non-billable roles as well would fall into that admin bucket. And so we're going to reference a little bit of this as we start off our discussion today. And again, this will be available to you. These firms were represented from 50 to 250 employee firms in this mid-size range. So happy clients increase the profits by bringing you more business themselves and also by referring you new clients. And your administrative roles, your roles and those that you lead within your firms play a really critical role in contributing to the satisfaction by your clients. So when we asked our law firm professionals about their top strategic priorities, I just want to share a few of those insights with you. And we've listed here the top 5 business priorities for firms that we spoke with for this year. And improving client satisfaction is at the top of the list. 43% of those folks that we spoke with cited improving their client experience as top. And then managing the cost of doing business. And we're going to be touching upon some of those things throughout this hour. But interestingly enough, across the administrative support, it was actually 46% of those individuals said that managing the cost of doing business was the very top priority for them. Rounding out the list, of course, are a few other areas of priority, which is, finding ways to branch out, to diversify the firm, whether that be a new practice area or maybe some additional service offerings in some practice areas that your firm is already engaged. Certainly recruiting and retaining staff is a very important one, and we're going to touch upon that here as well today. And then lastly, the digital transformation and technology component. As we all know, technology is a big part of how we get our work done. And we'll be focusing a bit about this too. All of these priorities show that the work that you do and that you are responsible and accountable for, whether that directly or indirectly through your staff, impacts your firm-wide goals. So everything that you do is fostering your advancement and success in these various areas, which are priorities to your law firm. Okay, so I mentioned this briefly. Technology is certainly a part of the solution when it comes to improving the overall operation of the business. The tools that you invest in are critical to your firm's ability to provide quality and timely service to your clients. It's interesting here. We've broken this out into two different areas. The technology, the green is the technology that your firm has, these firms that we spoke to have already invested in, and also the technologies that the firms acknowledge that they may not have, but they would benefit from. So we've got three significant buckets here. One is, of course, legal accounting. Everyone has to be able to take in money and pay their bills and account for revenue and expenses and all of those things. So, and being able to bill clients is critical and all of those things. So, 28% of the firms have invested in technologies. Now, 28%. Okay, what about the rest of the firm? Well, maybe some are outsourcing this, or some, believe it or not, there are some firms that are still doing a lot of this manually. Time tracking, time tracking and time capture, and finding ways to automate the process of being able to make sure that you're billing out for every hour, minute, second that you're doing billable work for your clients. And then, of course, matter management, which is at the heart of what we do here at Actionstep. This is a big part too, and I think this is one of those growth areas. About 17% of the folks that we spoke to actually use some type of matter management. And then 31% of them acknowledge that this is something that could be beneficial to them. Some firms consider their email and their document management, or their email and their their calendaring and such, and their word processor, whether that's Word, or some firms are still using WordPerfect, as their matter management. They keep data in spreadsheets. So not every firm acknowledges that they have a true dedicated matter management tool, but there are certainly some benefits to that. We're going to touch upon some of those today as well. You're often asked to do more with less, and with disconnected tools a lot of the times. This can lead to certainly inefficiency when it comes to your processes, duplication in efforts, errors. Fragmented and disconnected tools are a big factor in holding firms back from reaching full potential. I want to dig in and identify some of the common bottlenecks that we see in firms. So we're going to dig into some of these time drains. We see these across many law firms, and we are identifying ways to hopefully be able to reduce these bottlenecks, improve those processes, because these inefficiencies can lead to mismanagement of time. It can turn into, excuse me, outstanding AR, which can potentially lead to cash flow challenges. It can also impact onboarding new employees and making sure that they are learning what they need to do in a timely and efficient manner, so that they are able to be more productive more quickly. A few of these things are the amount of time that's spent looking for information. If you don't have a lot of automation in your firm, you may be still looking through manual files and trying to figure out, whose desk it's on, or especially in today's hybrid world, it could be a file that someone took home that's sitting on their desk, and maybe they don't have that information in any of the systems in your firm. So a lot of time, excuse me, is spent looking, just literally looking for information. Maybe you had it, maybe somebody else that is working on the file with you has, and for every minute that is wasted, that is time that could be spent on higher value work, or even work that is going to lead to some of those priorities, like the client satisfaction. Chasing missing documents. who worked on this last? What's the latest version? Are we working from the latest version or not? Manual billing and invoicing, are you still printing out all of the pre-bills? And are your attorneys looking at the pre-bills, redlining them, highlighting them, handing them back? What does that process look like? Are there opportunities for you to streamline some of those processes? Because the sooner that you can get your bills out the door, the faster you can get paid. It goes back to that cash flow that I talked about a few minutes ago. Following up on unpaid bills, do you have a way to identify who owes you money and who's owed you money for, an extended period of time? Do you have a process in place for, being able to identify who owes you money, how, aged they are? Do you have a process for which you are reminding folks that they owe you money or making arrangements to pay you? What does that process look like? How manual is it, or how automated is that process? I mentioned onboarding a little while ago, and I think, this is a big one. Like, how are you onboarding your new employees? Are they being onboarded and taught by other employees that have been in the firm for a really long time, that may have um, inherited processes from their predecessor, and they're just continuing to do these processes the way that they were taught, and now they're teaching new employees? Is it the best way to do the task? Do you have other tools now available to you to make that more efficient? But because this is the way we've always done it, that is being carried forward with employees. Are they being onboarded in a timely manner so that they're able to be productive and helpful faster? And do you have processes in place? Do you have technology in place that can help them to know what the proper steps are, when to do them, when they're due, who to collaborate with, where to find the right templates and things like that? There are a variety of things that can be done with onboarding that will help you to be more efficient and to instill in new hires the best possible way to do the task at hand today with the tools that you have available to yourself. So I want to spend a few minutes on another topic. We're here today to talk about legal administrator and administrative roles and how we can improve your daily operations so that you can impact the profits. But there are also some bottlenecks that impact your billable staff. I spend a lot of time meeting with firms to talk about ways that they can improve efficiencies in order to be able to potentially have time freed up that could be converted into billable time. So that's revenue that could be gained. And I want to walk through some of that with you, but I want to give you a couple of other things that you can think about too, because when you're saving time on the things that just are not high value work, or things that you're doing manually that could be done faster and more efficiently, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, that time can be done, used for billable work, right? It could be, wow, a partner, an associate can meet their billable requirements and not have to put in 20 additional hours because they're trying to find the time that they need to bill. Maybe it means better work-life balance. Maybe it means you have time to take on some volunteer work, but you're able to find that time because you have taken some of the tasks that aren't a great use of time and converted those into a more efficient process. And so I just want to walk you through A few of the tasks that we've seen identified in the law firms that we work with, and we've even worked with these individuals to associate some average times spent on these tasks, and we kind of broke them out by attorney and by paralegals. And then from there, we also equated an average amount of time across these firms for like minutes in a day, hours in a week, and hours in a year, so that we could then come up with a quantity from a value perspective of, hey, this is how much time your firm is spending on these non-billable, pretty routine, repetitive tasks. What if we can improve some of this? What does that look like then? How much revenue could that equate to? And we try to be very conservative in this exercise. And so I just want to walk through a few of these with you. This example here is, a firm that has 30 attorneys and 18 paralegals. And so what we did is we talked through how much time does it take them to do these various tasks. I'm not going to walk through every single one of them, but I want to walk through a few of them, and then we'll talk about, how did we come to a value for the time that they could convert into billable higher value work. I mentioned earlier the time spent in just looking for information. And that is one of the areas that we hear from just about every firm that we work with, is just finding the file information. When are we scheduled to meet with the client? What are some other important deadlines that we have? What are the status of all the things that need to be done? Who's, the legal assistants working on this and paralegals working on this. We may have a couple of associates and a partner working on, depending on how, what the case is. Just tracking down information, basically. And, in this example, this firm said, our attorneys probably spend about 15 minutes a day looking for information. We did the same thing with paralegal time. Also recreating your day from a lawyer perspective, for really any billable resource perspective, because your paralegals are billing their time too. But, how do you make sure that you are capturing all of the time that you could bill? Because there are many times where you take a phone call and you hang up and you're literally rushing out the door. You've got a client waiting in the conference room. You didn't actually record the time that you just spent on that phone call or on the document you were just composing. There are times throughout your day that you just aren't capturing. And so the time that's spent at the end of a day or a week trying to recreate all of the billable work that you did is very time consuming. This firm, the example that I'm giving here, their attorneys spend about 30 minutes a day trying to remember and go thumbing through legal pads and emails and call logs and multiple places where you're looking for information to figure out what of that time is billable. And, oh, did I record that time? Did I put that time in the system? Did I write that time down? Because I'm still old school and my legal assistant enters the time in our billing system. That's a whole nother topic we can get into at another time. But there are lots and lots of examples of things that are being done that are zapping time that could be spent on higher value billable work. Just to name a few more, managing emails is very laborious for a lot of firms. In fact, it was one of the top time sucks for a lot of folks that we talk to. About 30 minutes a day spent just managing your emails. If you don't have any, a document management system that's got email management or a case management or matter management system, you spend a lot of time in Outlook probably just trying to organize and find and respond to emails, looking for documents, following up on things, generating standard documents. If you are starting every document from scratch, or you're going and finding one that you've done before, and then you are redacting out, all of the information, or trying to replace all of the information that was for the previous client, inevitably, that's going to take more time. That could potentially lead to errors because you may forget and leave something in, or not make a change that is necessary for the client that you're working with now. All of those things that you're doing, not only are they taking up time, but they are risk for error. And errors are never a good thing. Errors can lead to some pretty serious consequences depending on the nature of the error. But what I want to do is just kind of wrap this up and summarize it. And, one of the things that I do when I meet with firms and we go through this is we then come up with the value of the time that they're spending on these types of tasks, right? And then very conservatively, I say, even if you were to be able to convert 10% of this time into billable work. Let's say we can improve efficiencies, and we're going to talk about how to do some of those things here in a moment. If we could just take 10% of this time and convert it to billable work, and that's pretty conservative. I'm confident that you can improve a lot more than 10%, but for just simplicity and being conservative, let's say 10%. Based on these numbers in this example, this firm would be able to potentially bill $500,000 more just by reducing the time they're spending on these things to make some time for things that they can bill for. So just food for thought. I am more than happy also to have this type of conversation with any of you. Again, you're going to get my email address at the very end. Happy to, at any point in time, walk through some of this with you to give you some ideas of what your firm can do. But it is really more than just about the revenue. Everything that you do, directly or indirectly, does impact your revenue. So let's focus on a few of those right now. One is, wasted time equals higher overhead. In firms, attorneys and staff spend hours on administrative work. We talked about a few of them a few minutes ago: scheduling, document formatting, data entry, managing outdated systems. We have talked to some firms, and I think even in our report, the priorities report, we found that on average, firms use 6.6 different tools per case. So different technologies per case. So you're going in one system and then another system, and you do that by the number of cases that you have. That is certainly a lot of wasted time with potential duplicate data entry, and just having to go in and out of systems and managing all of that, and keeping all of those technologies updated. And if they're not updated, then that also can lead to some challenges as well. So every non-billable hour does add to the overhead without increasing the revenue. So it also impacts the number of clients that you can serve, which certainly impacts the cost of delivering the services and being able to add to the revenues. Another one is delayed cash flow. We talked a little bit about this earlier. If it takes you a long time to get your bills out, then that's time that you aren't getting the cash back. If you are losing time, if it's not getting recorded, and even if you are letting a few minutes a day slip, that all adds up over time. And I've seen before, I want to say this might have been in an ABA article that I read a few years ago, but the longer that you wait to recreate that day, for those of you that have attorneys that are either at the end of the day or the end of the week trying to go back through, like I mentioned earlier, and kind of recreate and enter that time, that is revenue being lost. For every day that goes by, that is less and less revenue that you're likely to capture. So if you can enter the time contemporaneously, or at least, throughout the day, you are going to be able to recover and bill for much more time than if you wait until, let's say, a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning when you're drinking your coffee and you go back through your diary for the week and try to recreate everything. This all impacts um, the cash flow, especially for those of you that are in high volume or contingency based practices, being able to keep up with the expenses and getting those in. You never know, particularly in a contingency situation, when that case might be moving towards settlement and you get a call that says, okay, we need to know, how much have you got invested in this case? We're going to settle it. We're getting ready to make you an offer. And guess what? If all of the expenses aren't in, for example, then you are likely going to have to write that off later because your settlement is not going to include those items. Slower ramp time for new hires. We already talked a bit about that. The more that you have in place with an onboarding plan and tools, technology that will help guide your employees through the proper things to do in the various different types of cases, or being able to see a task list and they know, what they need to get done in a given time period, the better. Those are going to help you to reduce the risk of missing deadlines and things like that, which are going to ultimately help. And then just the lower employee satisfaction as well. If you don't provide your staff with um, the proper tools and the proper training and the appropriate working conditions, they're not going to be happy, and they're not going to stay. And it is costly to recruit and to interview and to hire. It's costly to train folks only to have them leave. And so all of this again impacts the business and the bottom line, irrespective of the revenue that we just talked about a few minutes ago. So where do we start? How do we go about identifying ways that we can create improvements? Well, one of them, the first step, is to identify where your biggest administrative bottlenecks are. So you want to start by pinpointing the administrative tasks that consume the most time or that tend to cause the most delays. Now, it's a lot easier when you have technology in place that allows you to view, productivity reports so that you can see, all right, well, these cases are getting stuck in this phase. How can we improve? For example, we'll just say medical records. You've requested a lot of medical records and they're slowly trickling in. Is there something that you can do to speed up that process so that you have all of that done in a more timely manner? So look at uh, the processes and where the most time is being spent, and let's try to identify opportunities to shorten that cycle, shorten that time frame. You want to focus on the areas where the inefficiencies are directly impacting the revenue, the cash flow, or employee productivity. I mean, you may have a lot of bottlenecks. Some are going to be more impactful than others. So you want to focus your efforts initially on those that have the biggest impact to the profitability of the business. You also want to tackle one process at a time. We're going to walk through in just a minute or so the mapping process of how do you map out what happens and what a process is. What's the beginning, what's the end, what's everything in between, and then analyze that to determine where are some steps that we can cut out, or we can automate. We can use technology. We can use different individuals with different skill sets within the firm to be able to do that work more efficiently. And then lastly, measure the time as you're doing this, and as you start improving one process you're going to take one at a time and tackle it. Then you want to measure the time that you saved on that and make sure that you're finding a way to reinvest that time that you're saving into higher value work. Where can we spend that time? We just saved 15 minutes on this process. What can we do with that 15 minutes that's going to make the highest impact on the firm's profitability? You want to track the hours. How can you do that? You want to track the hours and resources that you've freed up by automating a particular task or process. You want to redirect that into a more strategic revenue generating activity, like maybe it's client service, maybe it's networking and rainmaking, business development, so that you can attract more clients. Maybe you free up time so that you can attend some business development activity opportunities, so that you can, find some new clients. Or just simply faster delivery to your clients. That's going to lead to them being happier with you. You have, wrapped something up or gotten something to them before the deadline that you gave them. You're going to exceed their expectations. You're going to put yourself in a position where they want to do more business with you, and they're going to recommend you to their friends and their colleagues. So I want to talk about some practical areas that you can automate that are going to help you reduce the overhead. And of course, we've been talking all day, all this last 37 minutes about the overhead and the efficiencies and the profitability. So let's just kind of walk through a few of these so that you can see, be thinking about, are these areas that you have got buttoned up and you have done as much as you can to automate? You've got the right people doing the work. Or is this an area for yourself, for your firm, that you can actually take a look at? First, it's client intake. What are some things that you could do? One is you can use online forms that have some conditional logic to collect and route the information to the right people within the firm. So you're automating this process. You're making it easy for your client or your potential client to provide you information, and then it's routing to the right person to do the next step, whether that's doing a conflict check or doing an evaluation to see what, the outcome might be. Is this worth us taking on? All of those things, making it easy to get this information for yourself, for your staff, and also for the client is critical. Integrate the client intake process with your CRM. Having a CRM is certainly going to be a step towards that automation, or your case management system, because this also will allow you to eliminate duplicate data entry. You don't want to have to enter this information in multiple systems. I mentioned earlier the average 6.6 tools used for every case. We want to eliminate the need to have to do all of this in more than one system. And then also setting up, this is a fairly simple one, set up auto responses so that you can confirm to this client or potential client that you received the information and what the expectation is for next steps. Just a message going out to them, thanking them for submitting the information. You'll have someone review it and get back to them within X amount of time, or they'll hear from, so-and-so. Just providing them information. That's peace of mind for them that, hey, they did this right. Okay, that was pretty easy. I went on a website, I entered information. Wow, they got the information already, and I know what happens next. That is super helpful. Document management and creation. This is a big area for um, automation opportunities, whether it be storing, how you store your documents and you find them and you share them. So via a document management tool like an iManage or a NetDocuments, or you use SharePoint, or you use the functionality within a practice management system. All of these tools will help you with finding documents faster. We talked about that earlier. Just the sheer fact of finding things is a huge time suck. Being able to compare versions and make sure that you're working on the right version so that you're not wasting time on a version that was three iterations ago and now you've got to recreate work. Um, Document automation tools are huge in being able to create and leverage templates so that you're not reinventing the wheel. There are a lot of smart technologies out there, Hot Docs, Knackly, our Actionstep Builder tool that will allow you to literally fill out um, questionnaires and have the documents created based upon the answers that you have built and automated these tools so that you're just filling in and ideally it is grabbing the information from a tool like an Actionstep, and it's then pulling that information into these document templates, and you're just literally clicking and generating the document sets. And so there's a lot of opportunity within the document management and creation tools out there and processes that you can really do some work to uh, do some automating. Appointment reminders, having that, whether that be Outlook or practice management tools, just knowing that you've got that safety net so that you're not going to miss deadlines. That's an easy enough one to create some efficiencies. Looking at your billing process. I mentioned earlier and gave the example of, a manual pre-bill process. How much of your billing process from time entry through to generating invoice and identifying, collection opportunities, etc., and applying payments, all of everything related to the process, automating as much of that as you can is going to lead to quicker bills out the door and cash in the door. Again, the overdue follow-up, it's really any types of follow-ups. As much of that as you can automate, the better. There are tools within your billing systems and practice management systems that will allow you to automate the process of, hey, these bills haven't been paid in 15 days or 30 days, whatever the case might be. It sends an automatic follow-up for you so that you're not having to, pick up the phone or individually email folks to inquire about bills. Just the sheer uh, process of managing all of the case matter information, all of the data, who are the parties, how are they related, what needs to happen, what has happened already, what needs to happen next, what documents need to be filed, when do they need to be filed, what is the history of our settlement conversation so far, depending on what type of case it is. All of that there's a huge opportunity to improve efficiencies in this area. And client communications. This goes back to what we talked about early on in the number one priority for firms in our priorities report being client satisfaction. Clients want communication. They want to know what you're doing for them. They want to know what you're working on. They want to know what's next. They want to know what they're spending their money on for your services. And having tools in place to be able to communicate with them more effectively, that can be email, that can be a client portal. Client portals are a great way to keep your clients informed, but also give you and your clients an opportunity to have them leverage technology to provide you information that you may need from them or that you're waiting on from them. They can upload information that you need in a much more efficient manner than dropping it off at your office or emailing it over. So there are a lot of different things that you can do there when it comes to client communications. So once you've identified the areas for automation, it's time to bring in that automation. And, we talked earlier about, mapping out a process. And I want to just walk you through that here as we are going to be winding up here in a couple of minutes. First of all, you need to identify the goal. And the goal is, what are you trying to accomplish with the process or the task? You want to you want to identify what's success at the end. Like, what are you trying to get to? Then, so what's our outcome? Step 2 is, let's list out all the steps, everything that needs to happen to get to that outcome from the beginning to the end. You want to notate who does what along the way. So for every one of those steps, you're going to identify the individuals that are responsible for them. And this is a good opportunity too for you to look at, all right, does it make sense? Do we have the right person doing this task? Because it may be that you've hired new people or you have new roles that have been brought into the firm that might be more applicable to the task at hand. And so identifying, hey, is Beth still the right person to do this thing? Or should that be done by Charlie? Right? And so identifying if this still looks right to achieve our outcome, and are we doing it in the most efficient way? Are there bottlenecks? Is it that Beth is so busy that she can't get to this for a week, but Janet could get to it tomorrow? So why are we sending all of this to Beth? We could disperse those tasks. And that way we won't have that bottleneck at that particular step. Are there repetitive tasks? Every once in a while, reviewing your processes is a great idea, because you may find that you are repeating some things. Is there an opportunity to cut out some of these steps? Literally create a visual map of this process, right? It's a workflow at the end of the day. And so if you map it out and then you kind of draw it out, it's like this happens and then this happens and then it goes here. And if this happens, it goes here. Like, being able to visually see it will help you sometimes to determine, where there are opportunities that we can make some changes or that we can streamline. Are we using the right tools? Let's make sure that we're using the right tools, because we may have added some software that will take 3 of these steps and condense them down to 1, but because we haven't taken the time to actually go through and review these processes, we forgot that we could actually benefit from the tool that we added 3 months ago that could do part of this process for us. So make sure that you are leveraging the tools that you have, or quite frankly, that you are getting the tools that you need in order to streamline some of this, and then test it, right? Make some changes, figure out what the lay of the land is, figure out what a better state looks like, and then test it. Do an experiment. There is nothing wrong with doing experiments to figure out if you found a better way, because there's likely multiple ways that are better than what you're doing now. And every once in a while, it's a good idea to go through this process. And again, like we mentioned earlier, doing that one step at a time is the best way to go. Now, speaking of, the right tools, we mentioned earlier that technology is one of the ways that firms can leverage to, do more with less, be more efficient, ultimately be more profitable, which is what we're here to talk about. A centralized matter management tool. I think we said in the beginning, 17% of the firms from our priorities report have some sort of a centralized matter management tool. So they're leveraging it. What is it doing for them? Well, it's eliminating some of those 6.6 tools that I also mentioned earlier, right? It's a single source of truth. It gives you better visibility across the teams working on it, or even you as a firm administrator being able to see what the bandwidth and workloads are for individuals. If you've got people that are going to be out of the office, like how do you redisperse the work? It's a lot easier to do when you have the visibility. You certainly can reduce errors when you have all of this automated. And it ensures that everybody's working with the latest information because it's all in the system and you're not relying on things that are in different places or maybe still in a paper file. Centralizing certainly speeds up decision making because you're able to avoid some of the costly miscommunications that happen that can also impact the revenue. Automating workflows and the reminders. We talked earlier about the reminders, and everything we've talked about really in the last few minutes has been related to workflows, processes, steps that happen to get you from A to B, right? And so automating a lot of this is going to free up time, it's going to eliminate errors. It is going to help you not miss deadlines, which can be costly. Heaven forbid, there's actually a penalty with missing a deadline. It is going to help you ensure that your folks are getting trained properly because you have automated the processes that they need to follow. And so it's going to basically walk them through and tell them what needs to happen and when. And it's going to route it then to the next person on the list that needs to take care of the next step in the process. And streamlining your billing and collections, of course, that, with your billing systems, this is a critical part where tools can make the difference. You want to make sure that you're able, if you can set up a payment portal so they can pay you more easily and faster and give them options for payment. You can have better reporting. You can, know who to collect from, know where the time capture tools in particular, where it can identify not only is it making it easier for you to get bills out the door, but oftentimes with time capture capabilities, it's watching you, it's monitoring what your lawyers and paralegals are doing so that it can identify, hey, Beth, you didn't bill for this meeting you had earlier. Do you want to turn that into a time entry? Those tools are really important to being more efficient. So, when you're looking at adding technologies, you want to make sure that you're adding technologies that are going to be flexible, that can grow with you. So as your processes change, or I mentioned earlier that maybe you're in a growth mode and you want to find new service delivery opportunities or adding practice areas, making sure that whatever tools you're using will accommodate that and adapt to change. And then, of course, the biggest part, which we've talked a lot about today, is just the automation portion of this so that you can make sure that people are spending their time on the right things. So the key takeaways before we move over into any sort of Q&A would be, your administrative time, your staff's administrative time, even your lawyers and paralegals administrative time does equal directly or indirectly profitability because everything you do does impact. Making sure you've got the right tools because that's going to help you boost efficiencies. It's going to help you deliver better service to your clients. And you want to make sure that what you're doing and the tools that you're using all tie back to the firm's priorities. Like, what are your firm's priorities as a business? And is the work that you're doing and the tools that you are using actually promoting those goals that your firm has, or is it actually deterring and moving you away from being able to reach those goals? Any opportunity for automation is a good thing. It reduces overhead in a lot of different ways, even if it means that you have someone leaving the firm and you don't necessarily have to replace them or replace them as quickly, or maybe you can replace them with someone with a different skill set because now you have some automation and some tools that will offset some of uh, that workload, right? And so it's looking at, hey, do we need to replace this person with the same skills that the individual left has? You can analyze all of that. And then lastly, really every little small operational change that you make can equal big firm-wide impacts. Every little small change does build and they all add up, and then that leads to more change. So here is, as promised, my email address. I think Joy's also going to pop that into the chat. If there's anything, a few things that I'm happy to share with you, if anyone would like, is I can walk through that little um, task and time, evaluation of where you could save time and convert that to billables. That's kind of our return on investment walkthrough. That mid-market report I'm happy to share. And of course, if anybody's interested in chatting about Actionstep, we're always happy to talk about that. So we will, I think, open it up now to questions if anyone has any.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Beth. I do have a few questions that have come in previously, but attendees, if you have any more, this is the time to go ahead and get those in, and we'll get started with those. So I just had one pop in. Do you know if there is a report available for small firms?
We don't have one, but I think that there could be some out there. Clio comes to mind. They may have some reporting that they've done that is geared more towards smaller firms, but I'm happy to, check resources I have too if you want to shoot me an email, but you might want to try, I would try looking at Clio. They may have a small firm report.
Great. Thank you. And then Beth, how do you identify which processes are truly essential and which ones are simply the way it's always been done?
Yeah, I think it's, as you are taking a look at the way that um, your work's getting done. We talked a little bit about this, like identifying, what is the desired outcome? And then are we doing things now with the people and the tools that we have? Are we doing those things to get to that outcome? Or are we just following a process that we've had in a notebook for the last three people in the role, right? It's a good time, maybe once a year, once every other year, is really kind of reviewing the things that you do across the board in terms of processes and understanding, all right, well, we've added three different software tools in the last year, and I know that four of these steps could be eliminated. So it's really a matter of looking at, what do we have to work with now? And does this process still apply? Because chances are a lot of them can be reworked and revamped.
Great. Thank you so much. And then Caroline just asked, does Actionstep have time billing and accounting?
We do. Yes, we have practice management and we have time billing and accounting.
Great. Thank you. And then this probably might be the last question we have. We'll see. What portal platforms are recommended?
What portal platforms are recommended?
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, your case management tools, I know, for example, Actionstep, we do have a client portal. I know several of the others out there have client portals. Some of your billing and accounting software have client portals. So it's usually in addition to, it's a feature built into either your practice management software or your billing and accounting software. I'm not aware of any client portals that are independent of those other tools, but there may be some out there. I'm just not aware of them off the top of my head.
Thanks, Beth. And we're going to try to squeeze one more question in. How do you evaluate whether our firm's current software stack is cost effective?
Hmm. Good question. So I kind of hinted to that a little bit at the end. I mentioned earlier that I do a lot of speaking. I know we're almost out of time, so I'll be really quickly. One of the things we do is identifying what the ideal tech ecosystem looks like. And it's walking through what are your firm's goals. And then every single tool that you have, okay, does this meet our business goal? Does this meet our um, client delivery goal, like what are the goals, and then really mapping what every single technology that you have currently, and does it help you get to one of those goals, and where are the gaps? Like if you have a business goal but none of your tools are supporting that goal, that's a technology gap that you have. And are some of the tools that you have now no longer supporting the goals of the business? And those are areas that you can shift that expenditure into technologies that will align with the business goals.
Great. Thank you so much, Beth. We are out of time, so if you have any final closing remarks before I wrap us up.
I'll just say I appreciate you all spending the hour with me. I am available. You guys have and gals have my email address, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate your time today, and thank you everyone for attending. I also like to thank Actionstep for sponsoring today's event. We'd love to have everyone join us again, so if you would, please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts. Have a great day, everyone.